So The Fantastic Four: First Steps was directed by Matt Shakman and it stars Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, Eben Moss-Bachrach, Julia Garner, Ralph Ineson, and in this movie taking place in an alternate timeline to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and in the 1960s. The Fantastic Four is the primary group of superheroes that are out there, consisting of Mr. Fantastic, the Invisible Woman, Human Torch, and the Thing. And in this movie, they've been Fantastic Four for a while, and now there are these new threats known as Silver Surfer and Galactus that are going to basically destroy the entire Earth, and it's up to the Fantastic Four to come together and stop them once and for all. Now, this is a movie that I was definitely looking forward to. Of the MCU movies, this was one that I was kind of nervous about because this is a brand new team that's being brought into the MCU, not counting Thunderbolts and such, but the fact that the Fantastic Four have been done before, admittedly not in any great movies beforehand, I just watched them for the first time. I did not care for Fantastic Four 2005, didn't think Rises of Silver Surfer was much better, and then the less said about Four Stick, the better. So, without a doubt, this had to be the best Fantastic Four movie. Not counting The Incredibles, this had to be the best Fantastic Four movie. And having seen it, I can say, yeah, this is definitely the best Fantastic Four movie. This one I enjoyed quite a bit. I thought it was pretty good, and I'm definitely curious to see what they'll do next with some of these characters. So let's start off with what I do like about this movie. First off, again, the performances are solid. I think everyone is surprisingly well cast in this movie. I was initially skeptical about Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, but I thought he did a really good job. I kind of like that nerdy side of him, and I kind of like he's kind of showing off that nerdy side of Reed Richards, which I thought was very well done, and kind of how I kind of liked how his character was portrayed, and I kind of want to see more of that in some of the later movies. Vanessa Kirby, I thought she was really good as Sue Storm. Joseph Quinn steals the movie as Johnny. I thought he was really good in the movie. Probably the best part of the entire movie. Eben Moss-Bachrach, I thought was the weakest of the team. I kind of was like, okay, he's kind of more sensitive compared to like what his character is like. And I kind of got that, but I felt like they didn't take it far enough. And I'll kind of talk about that in my negatives. As far as some of the other characters, Julia Garner as Silver Surfer, I thought she did a good job. Ralph Ineson is he's pretty intimidating as Galactus for his very few scenes in this movie. Paul Walter Hauser also does a pretty good job as Mole Man. I didn't expect him to play that character, but he did a pretty good job for some of the scenes that he has. Also, I do like the retro future style of the movie. It kind of makes the movie stand out in a little unique way. Kind of how it's like, oh, it's supposed to take place in the 1960s, but a lot of stuff would probably be in 2060s now, hopefully. But I do think that with that in mind, I feel like they also did a lot of old school filming techniques, which like the cinematography looks a little bit more old school than some of the more cleaner cut Marvel movies that I've seen in the last few years. Also, the score by Michael Giacchino feels like it is from the 60s. I do feel like they were trying to mimic the 60s and kind of make it its own thing rather than being tied down to the MCU, which that's another thing I like about this movie. It's not being tied down to the MCU, and they don't really mention a lot of stuff that has happened. So things such as the TV shows, for instance. I do think that this is kind of where Marvel kind of needs to go back to, like kind of focus more on like the movies themselves and not really being tied down to the TV shows and such. I think that because it was trying to focus on their own story and in their own timeline, they actually had a little bit more freedom to kind of do whatever they want. I do think that's very well done. I do think that there are a lot of great sequences in the movie, particularly when Johnny Storm is actually doing his thing. I thought that was pretty good. Like some of his interactions with Silver Surfer, I thought were pretty good. The big fight at the end was also pretty good as well. There's one in space when they encounter Galactus for the first time. I thought that was very well done. And again, I will say this, probably the best Fantastic Four movie so far. Hopefully we get a sequel that's better than this movie. But I do think of the Fantastic Four movies, again, not counting The Incredibles, this is probably the best one. You actually got a sense of the characters. You got a lot of great sequences. I had a good time watching it. But let's talk about some of the things I don't like about this movie. There are some characters that are kind of thrown in there that kind of don't really matter, like Natasha Lyonne's character. When you find out like what her deal is, it's not really important. I felt like they could have cut her character out entirely and wouldn't make much of a difference. And again, back to the Thing, I felt like they didn't really do too much with him. It kind of showed like a more lighter side, kind of more against what he was kind of known for and such. Like it's a joke throughout the movie. It's like, oh, he doesn't want to say it's clobbering time. And again, I thought he was kind of the weakest of the movie. He didn't really do too much for me. Like, I got behind Johnny Storm. I enjoyed what they did with Reed Richards. And I thought Vanessa Kirby did a good job with Sue Storm. But the Thing, while his performance is good, I felt like they could have written his character better. Also, there are some things that are kind of like confusing about Sue Storm and also Mole Man, which I'm like, that's kind of odd and kind of forced. And like, what is the point of this? Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. They kind of just briefly say this relationship between them. I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. Why would you need that in this movie? I don't know. And also, there's not enough Galactus in this movie. Even though Ralph Ineson, he's pretty intimidating in the role, they could have used him a lot more. And I felt like it was kind of a waste to kind of have that character in this movie and not really do much with him. Julia Gardner gets a lot, and I do think that's kind of interesting what they do with her character and comparing to what the Fantastic Four has to do in this movie. But with Galactus, they could have used him a little bit more. Also, there are a few pacing issues here and there that I felt like, okay, you could have sped this up a little bit and kind of like make it a little shorter, but I felt like it's still a fun movie overall. And also, some of the jokes are kind of hit or miss. Joseph Quinn, his jokes hit. His jokes are really good, but there are some jokes where it's like, okay, that's a Marvel movie joke. It's a kind of a miss, unfortunately. And also, if you were really excited to see like what was going to happen at the end of Thunderbolts and kind of like how they're going to tie from that movie into this movie, you're going to be sorely disappointed because they don't address that at all. That's not really a spoiler because, again, it's not really in the movie. So that was kind of disappointing to me. But overall, I still had a good time with this movie. I thought the performances were pretty good, particularly from the Fantastic Four themselves. I do like the style of the movie, which also the cinematography and the score are also very well done. I do think there are some fun sequences as not being tied down to the MCU in any way, so they can just kind of do whatever they want with this universe. And again, I will reiterate this. Best Fantastic Four movie so far. And even though I don't like what they do with some characters and some things are questionable, and I do think that there could be some tighter pacing, and I also think that some of the jokes are kind of hit or miss. And again, I was kind of disappointed that they didn't tie into the MCU in that one post-credit scene from Thunderbolts and such. I would still recommend this movie, especially if you're really excited to see what they're going to do with Avengers Doomsday. I will give Fantastic Four First Steps 3 out of 4 stars. See it. So, who's your favorite team in Marvel, whether it's the comics or the movies? Comment down below, subscribe to the channel. This is Pat. Stay safe.